Welcome back, literarians, or welcome for the first time. My name is Literary Lori, and this is my YouTube channel where I share all of my favorite things about reading and writing books that center the lives of Black people and other people of color globally. However, this video is actually about my commitment to celebrate Black Literary History Month for the entire month of February. Yes, every single day in February, I am here sharing the story and the literary lessons we can learn from one incredible Black writer born in February. Yes, there are so many incredible Black writers born in the month of February that I am having a field day trying to decide which ones to talk about, because yes, there are just that many, and I'm not exaggerating. I think per capita there are more famous Black writers born in February than any other month. So henceforth, ergo thus, we being me, we are talking about amazing Black writers every day on this channel for the entire month of February. So yes, every single day. And we are now on day 20. Is it day 20? I don't remember. You can check whatever I put on the show on the in the description. But today we are talking about yet another incredible Black writer born on February 18th. If you recall, I mentioned that February 18th, Toni Morrison's birthday, Audre Lorde's birthday, B.B. Moore Campbell's birthday, and the fourth, not the last, but the fourth most incredible writer also born on February 18th is none other than Elizabeth Nunez. And we're going to get to that. But Elizabeth Nunez, also born on February 18th. We've done everybody else born on this auspicious day. Today is her day. All right. So let's get into our conversation, my storytelling about Elizabeth. So in case you didn't know, just big picture, Elizabeth Nunez is a Trinidadian-born, American-based author. She was a distinguished professor of English at Hunter College, in New York City, I should say. Her novels explored the pressures of the family, the legacy of colonialism, and the immigrants' longing for home. So all of her books really do explore these themes. Over her lifetime, she wrote 10 novels and 1 memoir. All of her books were critically acclaimed, award-winning. She's won so many awards, which we'll talk about in this as I get into her story. She did receive ultimately a Lifetime Literary Achievement Award from the Trinidad and Tobago National Library Systems. If you don't know Elizabeth Nunez's name, you didn't know her name, now you do. And I hope that I can do my part in getting you to pick up some of her books, because she truly is an incredible novelist and one of my favorite writers. All right, so let's get into the fun facts about Elizabeth Nunez. And let me just say right now, I am going to mispronounce her last name a billion times, not on purpose, but Elizabeth Nunez, we'll call this fun fact, pre-fun fact, but her last name is not spelled with an N-Y. It's just N-U-N-E-Z. Her family has Portuguese origin, and she very deliberately said they removed that N-Y to remove the colonial imprint of the Portuguese on their name. So it's when I met her, she corrected me. It's not Nunez, it's Nunez. So I'm going to try very hard to not N-Y her last name, but it comes out naturally because it is a traditionally Iberian name. Let's just say that last name. But let's go on. Let's move past my limitations on pronouncing Nunez, not Nunez. All right. So Elizabeth Nunez was born in Trinidad. At the time, Trinidad was still under British colonial rule, and she was one of 11 children. Yes, so you can imagine their bustling household. Fact number 2, as almost every writer that I've talked about, Elizabeth was an early reader, an eager reader, and an early writer. This was a lot of fun to hear that she loved reading the novels of Enid Boyton, I think yes, she's a British writer, and she just would like want to emulate the stories of these little British white children, and she would wear cardigans, and she tried to teach herself to eat cucumber sandwiches. This is very similar to me. This is reminiscent of Chimamanda Adichie, who said that she used to try to talk about the weather and drink ginger beer because that's what she would read about in her literature as a child. Also, when Elizabeth was young, she was known as Betsy. But after reading Pride and Prejudice and really liking and identifying with her character, with Austen's character, Elizabeth Bennet, she said, no, don't call me that anymore. You must call me Elizabeth and not Betsy, Betty. So she was Betty until she was 11. And then it was, no, I'm Elizabeth. Call me Elizabeth, because she was so moved by Pride and Prejudice. All right. So you can imagine young Elizabeth devouring British literature. And she even won a writing contest that was put on by the local newspaper when she was 9. So she was an early reader, an eager reader, and an early writer as well. Excuse me. Sorry, it's allergy season for me, and I apologize. I'm going to try not to sound gross while I'm talking. All right. So after Elizabeth completed high school in Trinidad, by the way, Trinidad became independent the same year Elizabeth graduated high school. So you can imagine the tumultuousness of the times. But she ended up coming to the United States for college. And she said in an interview that she didn't come to the United States, because she was an immigrant looking for a better life. She said she had a good life in Trinidad. She came from a pretty well-off family in Trinidad. She said she came to the U.S. because she wanted to be free. She wanted to have a career. And as a woman, and as being in a former colonized country, she said the freedom of like her thoughts was not there. So that's why she came to the United States. She won a scholarship to go to a small women's college actually, I don't know if it was a women's college. It's a small Catholic college, but it's in my home state of Wisconsin. So can you imagine coming from a Caribbean island to Wisconsin, like the wilds of Wisconsin? So not very diverse, very physically cold. But she managed to finish. She graduated from that college and started her life. And actually, she does fictionalize that experience of being in college as a newly arrived immigrant from the Caribbean in Wisconsin in her second novel, Beyond the Limbo Silence. We'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, so she graduates from college. She's knows that she wants to be a writer, but her first job is actually working as a social worker in New York City in 1967. And this was fun that she was actually riding the subway to work one day, and she saw a sign for a new college called Medgar Evers College that was hiring teachers. And she went and she got hired. So she went and got hired in the English department, and she actually really made a name for herself at Medgar Evers. She rose to become the chair of the department, then provost, senior vice president of academic affairs. So she was there until 2009. So think about that. I can't do math that fast in my head, but let's see, that was 1967, 68, all the way till 2009. While she was there, she's doing a lot of things. We'll get into all of it, but she also got her master's degree and eventually her PhD, both from New York University. Also, while she was at Medgar Evers, she co-founded the Black Writers Conference and served as its director from 1986 to 2000. If you aren't aware of the Black Writers Conference, you should go look it up. It is like the preeminent conference that focuses specifically on Black writers and the Black literary ecosystem and Black literature. And it is a still running, still incredible conference. And for that first conference that they had as a keynote speaker none other than Maya Angelou. All right, so she's working her way up to administrative positions at Medgar Evers. She's founding conferences at early in her career at Medgar Evers. She actually meets and marries a fellow professor. That was in 1974. So she's, doing all the work. And she obviously, if she's, becoming a professor and getting her PhD, she's writing a lot of academic text on literary criticism. But her first novel comes out in 1986, and it's called When Rocks Dance. Okay. Now, this is interesting. And she said that she intended to make this first book a contemporary novel about an academic who happens to be from Trinidad. However, what that book is about, this is literally the description. If you look up When Rocks Dance, this is what it says. At the turn of the century, in a tropical paradise where the greatest prize is land and the ultimate law is voodoo, Mariana, daughter of a native Trinidadian and an English planter, is the sole source of hope for thwarting a malicious malicious curse. Dun, dun, dun. Does that sound like a contemporary novel about an academic? She said that, I'm going to literally quote her. She said that the story took her back to the history of her island and its colonial past. She said, quote, I had to understand myself and where I came from. Then I was off to the races. So it's like this was this story that really is the one where she felt like she really had to dig back into her Trinidadian past before she could start writing contemporary novels. And sure enough, after that first novel, her books do tend to face forward contemporary, although she does dip back into the past a few times. But for the most part, she did write 10 novels, but for the most part, we are in contemporary times with Elizabeth Nunez. But it's interesting. I think a lot of writers who are living and writing and working outside of their home, they do have to grapple with that push and pull of their ancestral land. All right. So her second novel, as I mentioned, was Beyond the Limbo Silence. Have it on my bookshelf. I mean, you probably can't see, but it is right around there. That book really was, that book came out in 1998, and that was loosely based on her own experiences of coming to the United States, being a college student and not understanding the racial politics and what it meant to be Black in the United States when that was not the identifiers that she came from, that the character comes from in the novel, coming from the Caribbean. And so that is another issue that you will see continuously in Elizabeth's work, is this identity politics and the conflict between Black Americans and Black immigrants. So that, again, you'll see that conversation happening in many of Elizabeth's books, and she does that so well. By the way, the Washington Post named Beyond the Limbo Silence one of the best books of that year. It came out of 1998. So I just wanted to reiterate that conflict between African Americans and Black Caribbean and other Black immigrants was something that Elizabeth Nunez was grappling with in her personal life as well as in her literature. And she talked about it even in her memoir, which came out in 2014, which was called Not for Everyday Use. That book actually won the Hurston Wright Legacy Award that year for nonfiction. So I just want to give you a sense of what this conflict, what this challenge was for her. Elizabeth did marry an African-American man. She worked at Medgar Evers, which was a very academic, very African-American centric university. She lived in African-American neighborhoods, but she said she was always still felt like an outsider in those spaces. And she said in her memoir, this was one line that that kind of solidifies what this conflict was for her. She wrote in the memoir, a colleague at her college said to her, quote, "You can't come here on your banana boat and feel you can take what my people have suffered and died for. Our blood was spilled to get this college. Know your place." Okay, so this is what she said she was dealing with. Not just that, but there's a lot of back and forth. And again, she really parses this with a lot of nuance and good storytelling in many of her books. In fact, it was her last book, What Lila Knew, that came out in 2022 that she even admits that this is the one that she thinks she did that. She finally like got to the meat of this issue. And she said it was her most courageous and most honest book that tackled this issue. And let me tell you what this book is about, because I'm sure you're going to want to read it. So Lila, the main character, is a visiting professor at a college in Vermont. It's a mostly white college, and Lila is coming from the Caribbean. On her way to the college, she witnesses the police murder an innocent black man who was actually helping a white woman who was ODing, and he's giving her CPR. And the police think he's trying to kill her or attack her or something. So when she gets to the college, the small handful of black faculty expects that she's going to testify against the police because she was a witness. But she's conflicted, thinking as an immigrant, she doesn't want to risk her place at the college. She's afraid for a lot of different reasons and is hesitant to testify. And so here we have this, again, the push and pull. And again, Elizabeth said this was her most courageous book and the one that she thinks was the most honest with her own experiences and feelings about this issue that she has been dealing with and writing about for her whole professional career. All right, I'm going to go backwards a little bit. In 2001, she did write another historical book called historical fiction. It's called Bruised Hibiscus. And that book won an American Book Award and a New York Times Editor's Choice Award. That was 2001. So these are some of the titles you might want to check out. In 2006, Elizabeth Nunez released her novel Prospero's Daughter. Now, this is unique because it is loosely based on or inspired by Shakespeare's The Tempest, okay? And people often talk about this as one of her best books. I think anytime somebody does a successful retelling of a Shakespearean story, it's going to get attention. And that book actually won Novel of the Year by Black Issues Book Review, and it was also a New York Times Editor's Choice selection. Again, if you like retellings, Elizabeth she's such a writer's writer. She reads so much and writes so much and really understands literature. Like, she's a writer's writer. That's what she does. She is a writer. So when she decides to do a Shakespearean retelling, you know it's going to be good. All right, so that was Prospero's Daughter. Again, it's a retelling of The Tempest. After she leaves Medgar Evers, you would be like, girl, you go rest and retire. But no, she does not. In 2010, she becomes a distinguished professor of English at Hunter College, where she remained until she finally retired in 2024. She's almost 80 years old by that time. All right, so last but not least, most amazing and important thing you need to know about Elizabeth Nunez is that her commitment to uplift, mentor, and support Black writers, not only Black American writers, but Black writers from the diaspora, was legendary. She mentored, supported, and, not just like personally, but created institutions like the Black Writers Conference to support Black writers. She supported in so many ways, financially, again, institutionally. She worked tirelessly, even though she's being a professor, teaching students and writing. I mean, you don't write 10 novels like just in your free time. I mean, that takes commitment and time, and yet she still made time to help others. And of course, I'm speaking from personal experience. Here's my, connection with Elizabeth is that she was my teacher at the Hurston Wright Writers Conference one year, the year I went. And she was a fabulous instructor. She was just amazing. She's no nonsense, but still so caring and supportive. And at the end of our time together, so this is a week-long fiction workshop, and we were maybe eight women, and we were so excited, as you often are. We were like, oh my God, this was so great. We don't want to leave. We want to stay in touch. And we all said that we were going to get together again in a year to catch up, make sure we were still working on our novels, and that we would, have our own little mini reunion. And Elizabeth looked at us and said, you guys aren't going to do it. Nobody does that. Everybody says so. You're all happy right now, but you're going to it's not going to happen. And we're like, no, we're going to do it. And she's like, listen, if you guys actually get together, I will come wherever you guys meet. I will come and I will give you another session. I will teach you some more. And we were like, bet. And we did it. We all met at this one lovely woman's house in Long Island. I think we were in Long Island. And Elizabeth Nunez on her own, we didn't pay her or anything. She came and sat with us and taught us some more and talked about our work. That's how dedicated she was. Wait, or did we go to her house? Somehow I was at her house too. Maybe we came to her house too. I don't even remember. All I know, I know I was in her house. So did she come to us and we went to her house? I don't even remember. Sorry, this is babbling. But the point is, she was like, she was committed. She promised, she showed up, and she continued to stay in touch with us and help us. And, she stayed in my life for a long time, even after that session. So she was a dedicated, kind, supportive woman. And the Brooklyn Caribbean Literary Festival actually has named a prize in her name for aspiring Caribbean authors. So sadly, Elizabeth Nunez, died on November 28th, 2024 from complications from a stroke. She was 80 years old. She was still writing. She had just retired from teaching. And from what I understand, she was doing better and then apparently took a turn for the worst. But she was still writing and still trying to get her work out into the world. And I really think that the best thing we could all do for Elizabeth Nunez is to continue talking about her and to continue writing our own stories and continue to read her books. She left us so many. She also left us some really great instruction on how to be a prolific and successful writer. I wanted to give you guys one bit of advice that I heard her give somebody who asked, how do you start writing your novels? Like, how do you get over the fear of the blank page? And she acknowledged that, yes, starting a novel, even her who has all these awards and accolades, that even she gets nervous. And so she said she has to trick her mind by doing the things that she has some control over, because writing a novel isn't something you have real control over. You want things to go a certain way, but you never know if you're going to be able to do it. So she says what she does is she figures out how many words are in the novel, and then she breaks up the number. She's like, there's about 70 to 80,000 words. She breaks it down into like manageable chunks and tells herself, okay, all you have to do is write 1,500 words a week. She's like, sometimes she blows past that. Sometimes she gets just to it, but just the giving herself an actual like controlled metric that gets her able to start writing. Also, she recommends Stephen King's book on writing. She said she'd never read any Stephen King novels, but his book on writing helps her quell her anxiety about, just sitting down and getting words on the page. So there's 2 tips from Elizabeth Nunez. I'm going to leave you with a quote from Elizabeth to show you what a delight she is. She says, quote, in my family, this is what she said about her loving siblings, what they said about her. They said, quote, in my family, they say anything Elizabeth tells you, divide it by half, which is not a good thing, because basically they're saying I'm a liar. But I'm not a liar. I'm a fabulist. I'm a storyteller. I am a storyteller and I tell stories. I see myself as an artist and my medium is language. Unquote. I love Elizabeth Nunez with all my heart, and I hope she's somewhere in the ancestral realm, looking down on all of us and, still cheering us on, because that's what she was. She was a fervent cheerleader, particularly for Black writers and other writers of color. I love her so much, and I hope you now have a certain sense of what an amazing woman she was. Please go read her books. I've read almost every one of her novels, and they're all fantastic. All right. Thank you for sticking around. I hope I've inspired you. I hope you feel excited to take your writing seriously. Get your words down on the page. I will see you tomorrow with the story of yet another amazing Black writer born in February. Bye.